always, it's a segue into my talk, because I was thinking this week about the self-contemplation of spirit, how divine intelligence, the universe, a divine mind, spirit just thinks and the universe came into existence. And how divine mind thinks through us to create, to have ongoing creation. So in Science of Mind, as we talked about last week, our thought is creative. In fact, it's the most important thing that we have. It's one of the most important and powerful things that we have that to work with, to evolve and to grow and to heal our lives, our thought. So what you think counts, bottom line, it makes a difference how your life is turning out on a daily, on a weekly, on a moment-to-moment basis, Everything starts with a thought. Everything that you see here in this manifest world started with a thought. And I know sometimes that we would think, well, what's this got to do with my situation? I have things going on in my life, and I know God is everywhere present, not equally at all times. Yeah, but I don't know if God's really in this. God doesn't know about finances or about love, so I don't know about that. Well, Einstein told us that we made up space. We made up time. That these things, space and time, are constructs of our mind. And we in the Science of Mind say that God is equally present at all times, everywhere. And this is really important for us to know and get, particularly in the areas where when we see some of the things in our lives that are difficult or fearful or challenging, things that are going on in our lives that make us afraid. It's important for us to know that, yes, absolutely, even here, even in the midst of all of this that's going on in my life, God, infinite spirit, divine intelligence, the loving intelligence of the universe is right here, right in the midst of everything going on. See, for us to realize being, our beingness, we have to have consciousness. If we didn't have consciousness, if we were conscious of nothing, if you're conscious of nothing, you're unconscious. And so I think it behooves us to really spend a minute to think about what are we conscious of? What's filling our awareness? What do we focus on? What are we concentrating on? What's filling our mind most of the time? Now, it could be that we're focused on things in the outer world, the world of effect. It could be our problems. It could be our fears. It could be anything that's going on in our outside world. But here's the thing. The quality of our consciousness is determined by the ideas that we project out into the universe. What you focus on, you attract. That's what we teach in the Science of Mind. The quality of your consciousness is determined by the ideas and the thoughts that we think into the universe most of the time, again and again and again. Now, spirit, the infinite, wants to enjoy the reality of its own life, not just veg out. The spirit is not interested in the NCIS reruns, and it's not interested in vegging out on the couch. It's interested in enjoying the reality of its own life. Thomas Troward, who was a tremendous influence on Dr. Holmes, wrote in his writings that by thinking of itself as having the enjoyment for which it wishes. So spirit then is thinking of itself as having the enjoyment that it wishes. And so then for us that translates into, I think this means that we have to be thinking and feeling what it is that we want to be creating in our life. What we want to be healing, what we want to be growing, what we want to be evolving in our own life. We have to think about it and we have to feel it because we create the same way that spirit or God creates. God, spirit, divine intelligence, had a thought and the universe came into existence. Ergo, we think our thoughts and our universe comes into existence. One of the things that I really like about the Science of Mind teaching is that we remember that within each and every man, woman, and child, there is inherent goodness. Now, people may not be displaying that at every moment of time, including us. But because we believe that God is everywhere equally present, and that God exists within each and every person, then there is an inherent goodness, and that includes everybody, including us. It's fabulous. And I know that when we live our life, sometimes we've got so much going on, it's hard for us to see or to say or even to think about the fact that there's inherent goodness in myself or other people. We just get too much going on. And we come down to the fact, well, I can't do that. I've got worries, you know. I've got things going on in my life. I worry. I have things to do. And this is what people do in life. They worry. And the thing about worry, the thing that we talk about in Science of Mind all the time, worrying is praying the problem. We don't like to worry. We don't believe in worry. Worrying is praying the problem. Why? Because you're just going over and over and over the problem. Like over and over again and again and again, saying, oh God, I hope this doesn't happen. God, please, I hope this doesn't happen. God, I hope this doesn't happen. And the universe hears, happen. Make it happen. You know, universe hears, make it happen. Now, I realize that people don't worry for the fun of it. You know, I get that. I really do. Nobody wakes up in the morning and says, I don't have much on my calendar today. You know, I think I'll worry. Yeah, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to upset my stomach. I'm going to give myself a little headache here. I'm going to raise my blood pressure. I'm just going to worry today. That's a fun day. No. People are worrying because they haven't thought of something else to do that they would believe that would be more effective than worrying. So worrying is just kind of like a habit. And I realize in our culture here, one of the ways that we show people that we love them and we care for them is we convince ourselves that we should worry about people. That's how we love them. I worry about you because I love you. And think about it. I mean, actually, I think it starts with mothers. I really do. Mothers worry. It's part of their job description. It's like when they get the manual, they find out they're pregnant, they get the manual. Chapter 1 is how to worry. You know? And they say, well, I can't help it. My mother would always say, well, I can't help it. It's because I love you so much. You know, it's like there's no other option in the universe other than worry. And I wish we had one of those game boards with the little arrow that you spin, and you could have another turn. It'd be like choose something else, spin the arrow. You love me so much. What else could you do? You could pray. Perhaps you could pray 10 times a day for me. You could say, you know, I was really thinking about you today, and rather than worry about you, I prayed for you 10 times. Wouldn't that be great? I was thinking about you today, and rather than worry, I said the prayer of protection that we all know. The presence of God surrounds you. The love of God enfolds you. The power of God protects you. I said that 110 times because you were on my mind so much. And rather than worry, because I was thinking about you today, I said affirmations to remind myself that God is right where you are. See, worry involves feelings and beliefs about lack and limitation and not capable and less than. And there's got to be better ways to show we love and care rather than to worry. Because if we worry, we're just praying the problem. And I'm telling you, if you worry, you're creating hell in your own mind. And I know we're all smart people here, so why would we want to create hell in our own mind? Do you remember as a kid, I hope I'm not the only one, but do you remember believing in the boogeyman? Did you? I had my own personal boogeyman. I don't know if you did. But I remember having to look under the bed and look in the closets and look under all my dirty clothes and all of that to make sure that he wasn't hiding in there. And my dad had to come in and double check for me just to make sure. And then I got the notion, I kind of got even a better notion, and I was convinced that the boogeyman could scale the outside of the house and climb to the second story where my bedroom was and get in and get me. So thinking about that, nothing has changed except that consciousness has changed. And we now know there is no boogeyman. And we also know that the only place that the boogeyman ever lived was in our own thinking. So what's changed is our thinking has changed. Our thinking has evolved over time. Now the boogeyman, we could say that that's like all error conditions in our life. All error conditions that we deal with. All appearance that's contrary to the divine good of God. It's a boogeyman that we're believing in, you know? And we keep believing in it, and we keep believing in it, and we keep believing in it. And because we keep believing in it, we keep experiencing the effects as if there were a boogeyman. So we can still get all bent out of shape, we can still get all excited, and we can get afraid, and we can not sleep, and we can get concerned, and we can worry, and we can imagine these incredible, extraordinary things that are going to happen in our life. When we were a kid, it was so real. I get that. But nothing has changed. There is no boogeyman. There never has been a boogeyman. The difference is in you. The difference is in me. And I think that what we have to do with our thinking with regards to this error condition, whatever false belief is manifesting in our life right now, we have to change our thinking. Because it's only because that we have believed in it, and it's there only because that. So it will disappear when we cease to put our energy and our attention and our imagination and our feeling, all of that, when we cease to put all of that into it, it's going to disappear. When we take all of that away, it will cease to exist. It will cease to have power in our life. Why? Because the only life that it has, it receives from us. The only power that it has, it's when we give it that power. Now, spiritual practice changes things out here. We all know that. We get that. And that happens because spiritual practice that we engage in, spiritual practice that we do, changes us in here. Changes us in our body, mind. And to the degree that we change in here, we see things change out there. Because the material conditions that we deal with in the world, they have no life in and of themselves. They have no identity in and of themselves. They have no power in and of themselves. They are outpicturing of our convictions. And I will remind us that we are the people who say, change your thinking, change your life. We can change our convictions anytime we want. We can say things like, you know, I used to believe in that, but now I don't anymore. I used to be afraid of that, but I'm not anymore. I used to think this about that, but now I see things differently. We always have the power to change our convictions. We can say, well, all right, I know that this condition looks bad. This particular thing does not look good at all. But I believe that with consciousness, it can change. This looks way bad. This looks so ungood, but I believe with love, it can change. This doesn't look so good, but I believe with God, because all things are possible with God, it can change. I have to simply remember the spiritual truth here. And this is what we do as Science of Mind students. We know that there's a spiritual truth that's within each and every person. And there's a spiritual identity that we have always, that can never not be. Always. There's a story, true story. Many years back in northern Thailand, there was this enormous clay Buddha. And the monks who lived in the temple, they really revered this Buddha. And it was all covered, it was all clay, and it was kind of ugly. It wasn't one of the best examples of Thai Buddhist artwork or any of that. But they just loved this because it was so old and it had withstood invasions and weather and all sorts of horrible things that was going on. It had endured so much that they just totally revered this Buddha. But then all of a sudden a summer came that was incredibly hot. And the Buddha started to crack, and all of a sudden it got this huge big crack right down the side of it. And they were concerned, so one of the monks took his little monk flashlight and went up there and shone it into the crack, and he was stunned because a golden light was coming out from this Buddha. And so what they decided to do is they decided to chip away at this Buddha to see what was in there. And lo and behold, it was one of the largest solid gold Buddhas in existence. And to this day, thousands of people go every year to visit this Buddha. So it was interesting. This story is interesting to me because it's exactly like us. It's exactly like us. We have this golden Buddha inside of us, but it's all covered up with clay as a way to protect ourselves from the experiences that we have in the world, as a way to protect ourselves from being hurt, as a way to protect ourselves from being disappointed or rejection or rejected or whatever it is that we're afraid of. And the thing is that this shell does not serve us. It really doesn't. It's not who we are. But we've had it for so long that we're used to it. If we think that's who we are. In fact, some of us have had that clay shell for so long that we have forgotten that there is a golden Buddha inside each of us. So here's what we get to do on our life journey. We get to kind of chip away at that clay. And I would say that every time we pray, every time we meditate, every time we chant, every time we attend service, a little bit of the clay falls away. We've encountered threatening situations. I get that, you know? And so we've covered our divinity. We've covered the divinity that we are. And although that we may have forgotten about it, it doesn't mean that it's still not there. It's difficult sometimes, I believe, for us to believe in our own goodness. I think what happens to us is that we take the worst thoughts that are going on in our imaginative minds and we run with them. We think that that's who we are. And then we take the worst thoughts that we have about other people and we run with those. We think that that's who they are. But I firmly believe that something within us knows that God is part of us and that God, part of us, is always there. And each of us are finding our own way to being made more whole, more complete, more free, more loving, to express that on this outer plane. Now, in the science of mind, we do not have a concept of original sin. We've talked about this time and time again. We actually believe more in original goodness or original blessing, if you want to call it. Like when you see a newborn baby. I've never, ever seen a newborn baby and when you're holding it and somebody's saying, "Ooh, this one's bad. Isn't this bad? You know, this is trouble. This is evil." We don't say that, for God's sakes. You look at the baby and you say, "Oh my God, this is the most beautiful thing I've ever seen. Look at its little feet and its little fingers and its soft little fuzzy head and it smells just like a little baby." There can't be anything bad in that. There absolutely can't be. That does not make any sense. It's insane. It's a way to control people. It's nonsense, and we are done with that. We have moved beyond that. We believe in original good, the original blessing inherent to everybody. I don't know if you've ever heard of this thing. There's a thing called Limbic Resonance. And that is where another person's state of mind overtakes our own. And so we've all had the experience of being in a room when somebody who's in an absolute horrible, funky state comes in. They are in just like, horrible state. And they come into the room and everybody feels it. It just is like a blanket that just permeates it. It's like Eeyore walked into the room and there's this Eeyore cloud of doom that's just hanging in the room. Yeah, we've all had it, right? Well, by the same token, it works the other way. It's just not a negative person that happens to, or somebody who's in a horrible mood that affects the whole room. If somebody comes into a room that has a really joyful expression of life, if they come into the room, we will feel their state of mind. We've all had that experience. And this also works then when we see the good, when we know when there's good in another person, when we know there's God in another person. It works then too. Even though they may not be displaying it at that very moment. It absolutely affects us and them when we know that. Why? Because the God, the Spirit, the universal intelligence within them is actually resonating with the recognition that we have of it. It actually responds to the admiration and the respect that we give it. It's interesting to me that over in India, when people greet each other, they put their hands together over their hearts and they bow and they say namaste, which is very simply the God in me greets the God in you. The divine in me meets the divine in you. The holiness that I am recognizes the holiness that you are. So before you have any interaction with anybody, you recognize that regardless of the outer stuff that's going on, they are a divine being. And we learn, when we can learn to rest in our own divinity, we can see more clearly the divinity in somebody else, in another person. And I recognize that it's a two-way street many, many, many times. Sometimes we will have to be willing to see the divinity in other people in order for us to see the divinity in ourselves. And sometimes it's reversed. You have to see the divinity in yourself more before you can recognize it in other people. So when we bring respect and honor to others around us, it's like we open a channel for the expression of divinity. We open a channel for the expression of goodness. We open a channel for the expression of love and helpfulness and holiness and kindness within each person. Because when we are loved and valued ourselves, we give that to other people. It's that simple. We become so much more willing to extend it and see the good inside of other people. Now, I believe that it is absolutely necessary for us to be willing to look with the eyes of love, to commit to see each other with the vision of God, to say, I will remember God is in this person. Even though I may not see it in their behavior right now, I see beyond the behavior. The behavior is just the clay of the Buddha. That's all. It's just the clay. And we want to have the vision so that we can see through that to something greater, to the divinity, to the perfection that we all are. Now that doesn't mean, by no way does it mean that things don't necessarily need to change with a person. See, I think this is why we don't want to do it and we don't want to say it. We think, geez, if I see God in that person, that means I'm condoning all of their bad behaviors. We think, no, I can't do that. I need for them to get better. I need for them to get with the program. I need for them to shape up and be different. And when they are, I'll think about seeing the God in them. That's not what it means. It really doesn't. It doesn't mean that at all. It doesn't mean that things don't have to change within a person. In the book Zen Mind, Beginner's Mind, Suzuki Roshi tells us that you are perfect just the way you are. And there's room for improvement. So in the Science of Mind teaching, we have practices that help foster inner transformation, because inner transformation is the only way we get transformation. Transformation does not happen out there. Transformation happens in here, and then it's reflected out there. So we encourage, we invite people to do spiritual mind treatment, to pray in an affirmative way, to meditate, to affirm and to visualize and study, to work with a practitioner, to do all of these things, to be of service. And then we invite people to forgive, and forgive, and then forgive again, others and ourselves. And we invite people to tithe and do all sorts of things, you know? And perhaps all of it, this whole list of these spiritual practices that we believe in trying to do, starts with the recognition of our own divinity, our own indwelling divinity. Recognizing that there is goodness, that which is of God is within each and every one of us. That which is of God is within me. How fabulous is that? There's something lovable within me. And when we know that, we're willing to see it in other people. And the good effects from us doing that have such an impact on the world. And that's when our light shines and we allow other people to shine their light. And isn't that the life we came here to live? And so it is. So it is.